Welcome to Distress to Joyful, Bailey's Way. I'm your host, Bailey Raber, here to enlighten you and the rest of the world about one of the most misunderstood mental health disorders out there, bipolar disorder. In each episode, we'll learn more about my personal journey with bipolar 2 disorder, how I've struggled with it, and how I've learned to overcome those struggles. Together, we'll laugh, we'll cry, and most importantly, we'll have fun. You'll leave each episode feeling hopeful and stocked full of useful information on how you can better yourself and the world around you. Hello, friends. Oh my God, I am beyond thrilled to tell you that the Etsy shop that I've been talking about since the end of season 1 of this podcast is finally launched. Yes, I have finally launched it, and I am so excited. Guys, this has been a dream of mine for years, since probably at least 2013. That long. That's almost a fucking decade. And it's taken me that long. But you know what? That is okay. It is okay that it took me a fucking decade to get this done. Because, back when this was first a dream, I honestly did not have the bandwidth to do it. I did not have the skill set that I have now. I did not have the motivation that I have now. And I did not have the time that I have now. Geez, I used to work 2 jobs, and I was thinking I was going to open an Etsy shop while I was working 2 fucking jobs. That was ever going to happen. Let's be real here. So I'm super excited and proud of myself for finally doing this. You can access the Etsy shop via my website. I'm also going to go ahead and put the link in my show notes and in the episode notes for this episode as well. But it is called Bailey's Way Designs, and you're going to find some pretty cool stuff in there. Right now, I've got a whole bunch of workout headbands that I love. Those have actually been the best sellers so far. Everybody else is loving them too, which makes me super happy. You'll also find some cool and useful things like hand sanitizer keychains, fitness shirts, and very soon there will be a bunch of baby and kids clothes. Yes. So if you guys follow me on Instagram at distress2joyful_Bailey's Way, you've probably seen a lot of the things that I post just on a random basis, to be honest, about the things that I sew. Because sewing is my passion. It's been my thing for over 2 decades now, pretty much. And so I make clothes for myself all the time, and I do some custom work for clients here and there. But I'm really excited to be able to do baby clothes because, y'all, they're just so fucking cute. I don't have a kid, so if I can make this stuff and sell it, that's even better because I don't have a kid to make things for. And just so you guys know, all of the profits that I acquire from my Etsy shop are actually going towards my college tuition. So if you do make a purchase, just know that it is going towards a good cause. I am in school for fashion design, as a lot of you know if you've been tuning in regularly. If not, well, hey, now you know I'm in school for fashion design. So all of this kind of goes hand in hand. Boom. But yeah. Super excited. Speaking of my education and fashion design, I actually started my first fashion design courses at my community college last month. Last month being January 2021. And I am really happy to start learning more about the world of fashion design. It's been a dream of mine since I was 15 years old to go to school for this, y'all. And, almost a decade and a half later, I'm not quite 30 yet, but, I'm pushing it. I'm actually making this dream come true, too. So I'm telling you guys this because I want y'all to know, well, 1, I'm excited, so it's fun to share exciting things. But 2, that just because you have a dream doesn't mean you should give up on it because it's been too many years, right? I mean, I could have easily given up on fashion design. I could have easily given up, and I actually did for a very long time. But now I've decided, you know what? No, this is my passion. This is my dream. This is what I'm going to do. And I've been wanting to do this for over a decade now. I'm finally going to make it happen. I'm in a place in my life where I can, and so I will, and I am. And I want you guys to use that as motivation for whatever it is in your life. If you want to start a dog walking business, if you want to become a realtor, whatever you want to do, it's never too late. It's never too late. Just remember that, okay? All right, let's go ahead and move into today's episode as it is a continuation from last episode. Red is for addiction awareness, because today we are sticking with the topic of addiction. So, when you think of addiction, what immediately comes to mind? Are you thinking of hardcore drugs like heroin and meth? Or are you thinking about something like alcohol addiction or something else? So, what about an addiction to food or an addiction to sex? What about an exercise addiction or cigarette addiction? Oh God, what about that one? Or addiction to gambling or an addiction to porn, right? So if you think I'm crazy, because some of these do sound like, a little bit crazy, but these are actually things that you can seriously become addicted to. Because, guys, in reality, you can become addicted to anything. Yeah. So according to an article that I found on addictioncenter.com, the definition of addiction is as follows. Addiction is a chronic, relapsing brain disease defined by a physical and psychological dependence on drugs, alcohol, or a behavior. A person with an addiction will often pursue their toxic habits despite putting themselves or others in harm's way. They go on to say that an addiction heavily impacts the way a person thinks, feels, and acts. Many individuals with addiction disorders are aware that they have a problem, but they have difficulty stopping on their own. So 2 other things that this article mentions that I find really interesting. Research estimates that genetics account for 40 to 60% of a person's likelihood of developing a substance use disorder. Damn, y'all, 40 to 60%. That's intense. So I'm gonna talk about this one real quick for a second, before moving on to the other thing that I find very interesting. So this one here really stands out to me because one thing that I have heard a lot in my lifetime is that if your parents have an alcohol abuse problem or a substance abuse problem or some kind of addiction of any sort, that as their child, it is very important that you become aware of these things and stay away from them if needed in order to not, give in to the addiction yourself. I think that made sense. I'm gonna say that a little bit differently to make sure it does make sense. Like, for example, if your parents have an addiction to pills, and let's say prescription pills like Vicodin. Let's just use Vicodin randomly, just because I know that one. I know that name. So if they have a substance abuse problem with Vicodin, and you are their child, you better stay the fuck away from Vicodin because you have a much higher chance of also becoming addicted to Vicodin just like them. And I've heard this a lot, especially when it comes to alcohol. So if your parents are alcoholics, then you have a really high chance of also becoming an alcoholic too. And so that's one of the things that really just breaks my heart because, the parents will sometimes not just entice the kids, but encourage their kids to drink because they have a drinking problem, so they don't see anything wrong with it. So then they encourage their children to start drinking, and their children now have a drinking problem, and then it's just a fucking never-ending cycle until someone comes along and says, "No, I'm not doing this. I see how bad this is for you. I see the bad behaviors. I see the negative impact, blah, blah, blah," and they don't do it and break the cycle. But unfortunately, I think breaking the cycle, it's not as rare as it used to be. I think it's becoming a lot more of a popular thing to do these days because of the internet and people like me talking about shit like this. But I think it's one of those things where I wish we could see a lot more of it because there's a lot of, especially with, 40 to 60% chance of you having a problem just like your parents. Guys, that's a big percentage. That's a really big percentage. So keep that in mind. And then the other thing that the article mentions that I found interesting is that they say that people with mental health disorders are more likely to develop a substance use disorder than the general population. Yeah, so that one's not surprising to me either because I've been there, right? I've been there. I've been that person who, I have a mental health disorder, obviously. Hi, bipolar 2, that's what I have, in case you aren't aware. But I struggled with substance abuse in the form of alcohol and food, too. Oh my God. Guys, that's a big one that I haven't really talked about a whole lot. But I know I've mentioned that at one point I weighed like 200 pounds. And just for a visual, you guys, I'm 5'3". I'm 5'3", and I've always been petite my entire life. So 200 pounds, that was not my typical weight. Growing up, I was always pretty petite. And then high school hit, and then depression hit. And besides alcohol, because obviously I've used alcohol, if you've tuned in up till now, obviously, you know that I used alcohol in many, many ways for coping mechanisms, unhealthy coping, mind you. But I also used food, you guys. I used food as an unhealthy coping mechanism. And I had addictions, guys, so bad. Let me just tell you. So part of the reason why I became 200 fucking pounds was an addiction to fast food. I am not even fucking kidding you guys. I can remember back, just thinking back to when I was living in a different area of Houston and the different jobs I've had. And I think back to the breakfast that I would eat. I would go through the drive-thru and get Chick-fil-A breakfast on my way to work. And then for lunch, I wouldn't have anything packed or anything. So I'd just go get fucking Whataburger or something. And then later, after my shift at the Melting Pot, I would go to Jack in the Box and get dinner, or Taco Bell, or McDonald's, or whoever the fuck was open at that time. And oh my God, I cannot believe how much fast food I used to eat, y'all. It's an insane amount. No wonder my insides were so fucked up. I shit you not. My stomach, I used to have so many issues. This might be TMI, but I don't give a shit. I used to have so many issues with my stomach and just not digesting food properly because I wasn't eating real food. I was eating fast food all the time. And the reason why I know that this was an addiction was because anytime I was feeling depressed or upset, the first thing I would do, most specifically during the daytime, let's put some things into perspective. During the daytime, I would go and get food. I'd go to the grocery store and I'd get little Lunchables and chocolates and cookies, like whatever I thought would make me feel better. And I would literally eat the whole thing. Or I'd order a large pizza from Pizza Hut with stuffed crust, obviously, with cheese stuffed crust, duh, and eat the whole fucking thing in one sitting. Like, that's what I would do. Guys, that was not because I was hungry. That's because I was sad and I was depressed. And I can remember sitting there, crying, watching TV, eating this whole fucking pizza, trying to make myself feel better. That's an addiction problem. That is using food as a way to cope with my depression. And that is not healthy in any way, shape, or form at all. I mean, unless you're like gorging on fruit or raw vegetables when you're depressed. I mean, if you want to do that, I think that would be okay, maybe. I mean, don't quote me on that. But for the most part, yeah, like that's one of the things that I struggled with. And now, because I rarely eat fast food anymore, partially because I'm vegetarian and there's literally nothing but fucking French fries and occasional mac and cheese that I can eat from fast food restaurants. But I don't eat fast food like I used to. And I don't have stomach issues anymore. I don't. So when I do have stomach issues, I get really fucking pissed. And then I say I'm never going to eat whatever I ate ever again because I don't feel like this anymore on a regular basis. I mean, man. And it also kind of makes me wonder if, genetics account for any of those kind of things for me. So when it comes to alcohol, like the reason why I said that food was a source of coping mechanisms during the day was because I told myself that if I only drank at nighttime with other people, then I wasn't an alcoholic. Like, those are literally things I told myself, you guys. So if I was depressed during the daytime, I would cope with food. Or if it was in the evening and friends were available to go out, then I'd go out and drink with them and I'd feel better. But either way, I mean, both of those, I hope you can see, both of those were addictions and they were problems. And they were controlling my life. And they just put me deeper into a rabbit hole that took me a long time to climb out of. Just being honest. So let's jump into how can addiction affect those diagnosed with bipolar disorder? Well, friend, I am so glad you asked. So I found an additional article on addictioncenter.com that talks about addiction and bipolar disorder. So let's dive on into that. So this article starts out by saying, in a study of people with bipolar disorder, approximately 60% had some history of substance abuse. Holy shit, 60%. So I'm definitely part of that 60%, if you hadn't picked up on that by now. But wow, like 60% of people with bipolar disorder. And I can't say that I'm surprised. Like, once again, I'm not surprised, but it does hurt my heart. It really hurts my heart knowing that because I went through some fucking hell with my substance issues or addiction issues. Let's just say addiction issues because, I mean, I talked about other kinds of addictions earlier and there was more than just food and alcohol, y'all. Like, more than food and alcohol, but we're just going to stick with those two for today because, we're not here all day long. So they do go on to say that although it's not fully understood why, bipolar disorder makes people more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. Drugs and alcohol often make the symptoms of bipolar disorder worse. People with no history of mental health issues may also develop bipolar disorder as a result of drug abuse. Okay, so that's interesting. That last part is interesting. So, I mean, if you tuned into last episode where we talked about alcohol and bipolar disorder, I talked further into why it is very appealing for those of us with bipolar disorder to drink alcohol. And it aids and then it depletes. So it gives super, super intense highs, super, super low lows, which is not fun. In reality, it is not fun because now that I've removed that from my life, I can look back and say, oh, fuck, that was not fun. It may have seemed fun at the time, but it definitely was not fun. But what's interesting is that they say that people with no history of mental health issues can also develop bipolar disorder as a result of drug abuse. Now, that is interesting to me. That's very interesting. So let's change things up a tiny little bit here. And it says, so how does abusing drugs and alcohol make bipolar disorder symptoms worse? Let's dive into that just a little bit further. But we're going to try to stick with the topic of addiction. I know that I was trying to make these two separate things, but I did mention last episode that alcohol and addiction kind of go hand in hand. So I might be referring to a little bit of the same information as last week, but I'm going to try not to. I'm going to try to switch it up and look at it from a different perspective. Because again, you can have a substance abuse problem and not have anything to do with alcohol. You can be addicted to pills and not even touch alcohol. You can have a problem with meth and have nothing to do with alcohol. You can have an addiction to sex or gambling or food that has nothing to do with alcohol. Okay? Just remember, addictions come in many different shapes, sizes, and forms. Unfortunately. So I found an article on delamohospital.com that further explains how abusing drugs and alcohol can make bipolar disorder symptoms worse. So they say mood-altering substances like drug and alcohol will have a major impact on the patient's bipolar symptoms. This most significantly affected symptoms of the condition. Oh my God. Wow. I can't read, y'all. Okay, so the most significantly affected symptoms of the condition will be the rate, prevalence, and intensity in which a patient experiences manic, hypomanic, and depressive episodes. Sometimes patients will use drugs to cope with these episodes and the stress that they bring into their lives. This behavior is called self-medicating and is not uncommon for drug-using bipolar patients to self-medicate with drugs. I feel like that last sentence was a little bit redundant. But then they go on to say that many people tend to believe that self-medicating helps them feel better. Depending on the drug of choice, they may feel like they are pulling out of a depressed episode or calming down from a manic episode. What they often fail to realize is that the concoction they are using to self-medicate during their episodes is only bringing temporary relief of symptoms, while gearing up the brain to experience a crash that will bring more severe mood swings as the brain chemistry is brought even further out of balance. Well, fuck. That makes so much sense. So much sense. So thankfully, I never got into any drugs. We are not putting marijuana in the umbrella of drugs, just so everybody's aware. But let's talk a little further about my experience with my alcohol addiction and how that shifted literally everything once I was able to remove alcohol from my life. Because again, you guys, I 100% classify alcohol as a drug. I'm pretty sure that I can actually find a website that would say the same thing too, but I won't move into that right now. Instead, we're going to talk about my self-medicating with alcohol. So I did that for almost a decade, y'all. It all began not long after I received my bipolar 2 diagnosis back when I was a sophomore in high school. So if you haven't yet, you need to go listen to episode 9 of season 1 to learn about my run with underage drinking and how all that got started. And so now that I no longer consume any alcohol, guys, I have seen a significant change in my depressive and hypomanic episodes. Significant change. Like I kind of mentioned that earlier, and it is fucking night and day, you guys. Night and day. So used to, back when I was drinking heavily on a regular basis, my depressive lows were so low that sometimes I would spend 2 to 3 days in bed with Netflix and junk food and my tears. Again, see? The junk food. Fast food, garbage from the grocery store, just trash. Just eating trash. And I can vividly remember doing this in my very first apartment here in Houston, and also in my second apartment in Houston, and my first apartment in Arlington, Texas, and the list fucking goes on. Because this was an ongoing thing for so long, guys, that I seriously believed that it was just part of my bipolar disorder and that I would never get any better and that I was doomed to feel so terribly low every couple of weeks. Like, I thought that I was supposed to feel this fucking bad every so often, and that was part of my bipolar disorder. And I am here to say right now that that is not fucking true. That is not. I believed that lie for a very long time, and I'm so glad that I have gotten through that and to a point where I learned that that was a lie. That was me telling myself that I'm supposed to feel this way as part of the cycle of my self-medicating, which just made everything fucking worse. So now that I've been sober for a little over 3 years, I have not experienced a depressive low episode like that since my last 1-bedroom apartment in Houston, which was in 2019. Yeah, I do get the lows, guys. I sure do still get those depressive lows. They come around. Those episodes will never escape me, I've learned. But they rarely last more than like 1 or 2 days now. And I can still usually just make myself do the things I'm supposed to do. I can go to work. I can exercise. I can brush my fucking teeth and shower like a civilized human. I mean, I can do the things that I need to do. Sometimes I can't get myself to exercise, I'm not going to lie. But other times I can, because I know that that will also help to further pull me out of my low if I move my fucking body. But y'all, like, this is nothing compared to what I used to deal with. Nothing. And it's such a beautiful thing because I literally thought I was always going to feel so shitty every couple of weeks and that was just part of it and I had to deal with it. And that's not true. And I want you guys to know that you don't have to feel like that either. You don't. And if you're struggling with alcohol and you've got bipolar disorder, please get the help that you need because I guarantee you, once you can get yourself out of that, which it's fucking hard. Trust me from experience, it's fucking hard. But once you can, you will see that there is such a beautiful life waiting for you, and you deserve that. You do. Whew, but sorry. That got real intense for a moment. But also I wanted to mention that these depressive lows, guys, they also don't come around as often as they used to. Because like I said, I used to think it was every couple of weeks that I would have to deal with this shit. And now it's like every couple of months a low will come around. Or if the weather is really super shit, which we will talk about in a future episode, don't worry. But still, I mean, this is nothing like it used to be. And I am so beyond grateful for that. And the reason why is because I stopped self-medicating. I stopped self-medicating with alcohol and sex and food and shit that would just make me feel worse about myself. Straight up. And if you've never experienced a depressive episode from bipolar disorder, dude, they are the fucking worst. Like, they really, really are. So I mentioned, lying in bed with Netflix for a couple of days, but it's more than that. There's no motivation to do anything. There's a lot of crying. There's awful feelings about yourself. There is having zero desire to reach out to anybody. Zero. I mean, I can remember people reaching out to me and I wouldn't respond until I would get out of these episodes. And then people didn't know I had bipolar disorder, so they thought I was just ghosting them, and it just created more problems, you see? So many more problems coming out of that shit. I do also, though, want to point out, you guys, and make a quick, important note that I have had just as many ups and downs in the past 3 years of being sober as I had when I was drinking heavily. Okay? So I don't want you to think that, like, I now have such an amazing life because I stopped drinking and all of that, because I do. Don't get me wrong, I do. But I still go through shit. And the reason why I can tell you that alcohol made shit worse was because the hell that I've been through in the last 3 years, I don't think I could have actually handled any of that back when I was drinking. Because drinking, like I've said a million times, makes everything fucking worse. So, for example, I was unemployed 3 times between 2020 and 2021. And every time depression came for me. Yes, it fucking did. It fucking did. But here's the thing. When depression came for me in these really fucking shitty moments of my life, it didn't hit me as hard. It sure fucking hit me. Don't get me wrong. It did hit me. But not like how depression used to hit me back when I was drinking. And that is how I know that alcohol was the problem. Because comparing my depression in 2020 and 2021 back to earlier times, man, both of them sucked, but previous ones sucked worse. They did. And I'm just telling you this because I want you to know that I am proof that this research is fucking accurate. I mean, go read these articles for yourself, you guys. I know that a lot of these articles are written by people who study the shit and haven't dealt with it themselves. But as somebody who's dealt with it themselves, I am here to say, yeah, they're right. It's true. Alcohol makes shit so much worse. And I really, really hope that you hearing this will not only help you to, see the other side and see that there's a glimmer of hope elsewhere, but also that you'll go and you'll get the help that you might need, if you need it. If you're listening and you realize, oh, fuck, I have a problem, I really encourage you to go get the professional help that you need. Because I got help I needed and it's changed my life in such a beautiful way. And I want that for you too. I really, really do. And one last thing before we end this episode is you can call this number. It is 866-587-0833. And you can talk to a professional. I actually found this number on addictioncenter.com. And they can help connect you with a treatment provider if you do need help and you are ready to seek it. So again, I truly want what's best for you. And if that means getting a professional involved to get the help that you need, then please do it. Let's get you moving in the right direction, okay? It's time for What a Weirdo! All right, so this segment is here as a way for us to normalize weird habits that we all have but don't necessarily talk about. And it's a way to add some wholesome laughter at the end of this episode because, as you know, they sometimes get a little heavy and a little intense, because of the topics involved. So today I am giving you one of my weirdo habits. I have another one for you guys. And I literally just realized this one last week, that this is something that I do on a regular basis, and I just had to share it with you. So I work in an office building where we share the restrooms with everybody on our floor, which I know with COVID, it's not like the most awesome thing ever, but we wear our masks, everything's cool. And I usually get to the office between like 9 and 9:30 a.m. So every morning when I first head to the restroom, I literally look through each and every stall and I find a toilet that has the seat up. Because if the seat is up, that means that nobody has used that toilet since it was cleaned the night before. And sometimes I get really fucking lucky, and the second time I use the restroom around like 11 a.m. or something like that, there is still a toilet with the seat up. And y'all, that makes my heart so happy. Like, I literally search those things out. Because I don't like using those stupid paper covers. So if I can be the first one to use it since it's been cleaned, like, fuck yeah, go me. I will do that every goddamn time. Oh my God. So what weirdo habits do you have? Head on over to whatisheybales.com. That's heybales.com/whataweirdo. And you can anonymously submit your weirdo habits or weirdo habits that your friend does or your mom does or someone that you saw at Walmart. Because we know people at Walmart are fucking weird. Please note that you are also welcome to send them in my messages on Instagram too. Whatever you prefer. I will give you a shout out if you want it. If not, anonymity is cool by me too. In next episode, we will talk a little bit further about, quote, the changing of the seasons and why I've chosen a new color to represent each season of the podcast. So this is going to be a super fabulous episode that's going to answer some of the questions that you may not even realize that you have. And you definitely don't want to miss it. You don't. So I know you guys have noticed that the color of the cover photo has changed, that we're red now, because red is for alcohol and addiction awareness. That's why. But yes, so we're going to talk further on that, so don't miss out. And before I go, don't forget to hit that cute little subscribe button so that you can stay updated with all of the episodes and new releases. And while you're at it, just go ahead and rate and review this podcast and tell people what you think. Tell me what you think. I love hearing y'all's opinions and your thoughts, so please share. But until next time, take it easy, stay grateful, and be joyful. Bye!